Yeah, he said, I ride for no limit, I rise from the cause. I'm the nigga on the tank with the big fucking balls. And if anybody mess with Snoop Doggy Dogg, I'ma make his niggas put his name on the wall. Now, yo, it's Brother Dawood. You know, this segment right here that I want to touch on is Master P saving Snoop from Suge Knight and the Suge Knight and Master P beef, so to say. First I want to start off, I want to go into how Suge Knight had put Death Row Records together with the helps of the likes of Harry O. We know about Harry O. He was a kingpin who was from like the down bottoms of Los Angeles, California. And you know that him and his brother was out there rocking, out in the streets and doing their thing as some type of kingpins. They had different distributions of cocaine networks out there throughout numerous states, like in the early 80s. And Mike Harry O. Harris, he was locked up, and when he was on his way of being released, they had stacked other charges against Harry O, tax evasion and a whole bunch of other stuff, which resulted in him still being in jail now from up to this day and time. But Suge Knight, his whole situation, how he got connected with Harry O is because before Suge even got into the music industry as a businessman, so to say, he was in the music industry, but he was like bodyguarding different celebrities and musicians, like the likes of Bobby Brown and a couple of other people. So Suge peeped game and was listening on different meetings and different things. So his whole inspiration or idea come from seeing and hearing how this industry moved, and he wanted his hand in to try in the industry to be an executive himself. So now with Suge himself there, he started or should I say he linked up with Dr. Dre, who was down with NWA, who was connected with or groups with Ruthless Records with Jerry Heller and them. So Suge's whole thing was if he could get Dre, or Dr. Dre, to be down with him and his new movement, that he can make things happen, because Dre was a very talented producer. But the problem with that there was he was in contracts. And in order for him to have him to deal with to deal with Dre, to be a part of his label, he had to get him out of that contract. And it was said that one day, Suge Knight and some of his friends, now this is before he really became the Suge Knight that we know of today, went up to Ruthless Records with baseball bats and everything, demanding that they release Dre from his contracts, because Dre was really needed to really catapult Death Row Records forward. But before the whole imprint, I'm gonna get to that whole part of how before what was Death Row before it became Death Row. But the situation resulted in Dre already was beefing with Eazy-E, but things it went to another level because Suge got involved. So And they always said little smart stuff that Eazy-E was like Jerry Heller's little son and all that there, because he favored Jerry over his own brothers and all that. So Suge was beefing with Eazy and Jerry Heller and them, and Eazy-E was putting out little anti-Dre stuff out there. And no, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get back to that point, because this whole thing I want to do it in a chronological order. So they got Dre out of there. Now, before Death Row became Death Row, it actually was Godfather Records, some say, and some say that the Godfather it wasn't necessarily Godfather Records. It was Godfather's management and entertainment, which was gonna be a subsidiary under Harry O's entertainment corporation that was gonna be ran by his wife Lydia Harris. But I forgot who suggested it, that listen, yeah, Godfather, you know, we know because Suge was tapped on the shoulder by someone to tell him that they could get funding from Harry O. So this whole thing was set up. Harry O set up Suge with David Kenner and a couple of other people who could bring about that whole reality of the record label. But then it was suggested, and the idea was thrown forth, that they should call it Death Row, and the concept behind the imprint Death Row. So Death Row was established as a record label, but it was a imprint or a subsidiary under Godfather Records. So now you got 1991, and you got I believe I'm trying to get the story right, but I know that I can't remember right now if Snoop, if that I think the first album that came out under Death Row was the the first single that came out was the Deep Cover single. That was the first song actually on Death Row Records. But the first actually album on Death Row was that of Snoop album Doggy Style, which was like a top seller, which came out in '91. And Dre touched that album up with that production. And then Snoop lyrics and his wittiness with the music and his wordplay took Death Row or the West Coast to a whole nother level. So now you got this beef and it's back and forth with Death Row Records and Ruthless Records. And so now you got this time that's playing out. Snoop was like the mascot, so to say, or the head runner for Death Row Records for years. You know, you had the Dog Pounds and the Nate Dogs, the Danny Boys, you know, Rage, and a whole bunch of artists. You know, it was Snoop World for a good minute, you know, but that album, Doggy Style, was the album that really took Death Row to that level. And that Chronic album, like them albums right there really took Death Row to that level, right? So now we're gonna fast forward it to 96. You know, but before that, you know, Snoop had another album out too that wasn't good as the Doggy Style album. You know, it was a disappointment. So now we gonna come over to like the 95, 96 era when Tupac comes over to Death Row Records. So when Tupac comes over, when Suge bail him out and bring him in as a a label mate. Snoop actually got pushed to the side. He was still one of the superstars on Death Row Records, but the spotlight and the position that Snoop had, Suge kind of gave that to Pop, and Pop came there. He had the Death Row. He had the Outlaws. He brought in some of his the dudes from Doug Life, like Big Sight. He brought in his half brother Mo Preem and them. So now you got this whole thing. The whole thing with the MGM studio happened. Pac get killed or hit up by the Anderson dude. Suge gets arrested and all that. So now at this point, this is the time when Death Row started declining. Now, at this time, Snoop wasn't happy. So Snoop was looking forward to leaving Death Row Records. And he wasn't answering his phone for Death Row employees and all these different things. So now you got this time where they started sending Snoop all types of threats and all that there. They put out that documentary, I think it was 98 or 99. 97, 98. No, before the documentary, they put a bounty out on Snoop that if anybody could catch Snoop and cut his ponytail off, that they'll buy him a BMW car and get him all these other perks and trinkets and all that. This was like a bounty put out. So they kept sending out all these different threats and all that stuff. So now, and they put his address out on a couple of different things they had. But one of the things that they put his address out was on that documentary or video documentary called Death Row Uncut. They showed Snoop house and they show his address. And a lot of the money that Snoop brought to Death Row, they wasn't trying to up him that money. So Snoop was losing everything. So now he's in a crazy position. He ain't had the money he needed to pay his taxes, pay off his mortgage, and all this stuff. So he's like damn near assed out. But it took a real dude to come through and rescue him from that situation. Master P, No Limit Records, he came through. He had set Snoop down, talked to him about what it is that he was doing already with his No Limit record, and he would love for him to come over, become a Tank Dog, or a member of No Limit. Snoop agreed. So Snoop, his wife, his kids, his Uncle Junebug and all of them, they had packed up the things they had, and P moved them out to the country club out there in Baton Rouge. So now at this time, P had came to set up a meeting to where he could get Snoop out of his Death Row contract. But then a deal was struck to where he was able to pay off a certain amount of money to get him out of that contract. And I don't know how true it is, but it was said that even though that he did get him out of that contract, that there was something in the contract to where Death Row or Suge still get points from that there. So Snoop becomes an official No Limit soldier in 1998. Now he started doing his thing. Now all of the disrespectful stuff started coming out from Suge and a couple of Death Row artists. Now you're gonna roll over to 2000. They comes out with that second Chronic album. They they had a song called It Ain't Easy Being a Soldier. And in that song, it was I think it was the realest, the one that said it sounded like Tupac. I forgot the other Swoop G and another person. Supposed to have they sent shots out at Snoop and they sent a shot out at P on that it ain't easy being a soldier. So now you got this anti-Snoop, anti-No Limit thing happening. And I remember being in New York with my family one time. And it was a Hot 97 interview. And I'm so upset right now because last night I went, because I have cassette tapes, through all my cassette tapes, not all of them, but a great amount of them. There's so many of them. And I taped that interview. And then that interview with Suge, he wasn't keeping up with the interview. On the whole interview, he was dogging Snoop, Puffy, and P. And he was saying stuff how P and Puffy, agents and all that stuff. And they was these real dudes, like they say they are. They'd be they did time like he did time. He was like, these guys never did no real time because they working for the people and all this stuff like that, and you know, all this crazy stuff. His whole thing on the interview, he was just trying to just put down those three dudes, Snoop, P, and Puffy. So now you got the situation that happened when Snoop was doing a show out there in Cali, and it was word that these dudes gonna come out there and get Snoop. But then it got back to P about this whole thing. So P made a call and had a whole platoon of dudes to come do to make sure that nobody mess with Snoop. You know, he had a lot of street dudes out there. He had dudes in the crowd that was nonchalant, that was there listening out to see if anything jumped off. He had like Secret Service type dudes there. He had dudes like military type dudes there. He had like 5 different type or 6, 7 type of groups of people out there to make sure nobody touched Snoop. I'm gonna say this though, we know that Suge, you know, he's from Compton. You know, he say he from the streets, but he plays sports. Like Suge wasn't out there banging when he was young. He was, you know, he did stuff, but he wasn't out there banging. Like he played football and all that stuff. With Suge, when he got his investments and all that, and the monies that he started earning, Suge paid for a position to be, you know, tied in with the Mob Rules, with like the likes of Mob James and all of them. And then it was said that he also had LAPD on the payrolls too. So now Suge started flexing. He started flexing when he got all his power throughout his whole earlier days of Death Row and early on. You know, Suge was considered like the big bad wolf or the boogeyman in the industry. But P wasn't having that. And it was said that Suge came at P and told him that LA wasn't big enough for the both of them. And it was said that P responded about, I just bought a house out here. When you moving out? You know? P was letting Suge know that, yeah, you might have tried all that shit with everybody else, but you ain't playing that here with me, you heard? So now you gotta remember too, P got mad connects with like dudes in like North Cali in the Bay Area. You know how the Bay get down. The Bay is pimping, macking, and hustling. And in order for them to keep that pimping, macking, and hustling shit together, you gotta have some hitters out there that get ready for some gangster shit when it's time to get into it. So P had them Richmond boys, you know. He had dudes from like certain dudes from Oakland that rolled with him, you know. Frisco, you know, all that whole Bay Area, and he had dudes in LA too. And he got dudes stretched all the way down to like Texas. Of course, he got New Orleans. He had hitters out of Cali. You know, he got his family. He got a lot of dangerous family members as well too. He had like the dudes of like his cousin Foley and all these other dudes, like, you know, all those dudes from, like, you know, back of town and front of town Cali, the old side and new side. And you know, he got his family out to St. Bernard, and he had a St. Thomas connection. You know, he had his Parkway connection. You know, then he had his connections with Kansas City. People don't know, P was rocking with Kansas City for years too. This before he blew up in the music industry. So P street shit stretches from the South, Midwest, and the West. You know, he was connected with numerous people. So P wasn't tripping on Suge Bogarting this, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't letting Snoop he wasn't gonna let Suge try to like Bogart him and get one up on him. So now we at what's his name? 2000. The lyrics that I mentioned prior, fuck you other niggas, see murder. When that Trapped in Crime album came out, when that song came, when that dun, 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 and when See Murder made that statement that if anybody mess with Snoop Doggy Dogg, we gonna make your niggas put their name. We gonna make their niggas put their name in the wall. He ain't say mine or our. He said he gonna make whoever touch him, they own boys pick. They, you know what I'm saying? And letting them know that we got Snoop back. Nobody gonna do nothing about it. And then Snoop had released that Pimp Slap diss track too a little bit after that. So with this whole thing with the No Limit and Death Row beef, you know, you had, like I said, the Realest, the Swoop G, they was like, where does hate come from out of nowhere, where this guy who called himself the Realest, because the Realest, he's really from Texas. I think he's from Houston or Dallas. I think Dallas, Texas. He went out there on a strength, you know, of I don't know how true it is that Pac liked him, and Pac asked Suge to sign him. And it was saying that of the Realest, that later on that a lot of those unreleased Tupac songs, that the Realest did voiceovers for those. But the Realest was trying to get at No Limit, calling them fake Pac this, fake Pac that. But when you look at him, you know, he had the tattoos in the same spot that Pac had it at. And some say that those tattoos that he have in reality is him paying homage to Pac, since Pac was his boy, so to say. All these anti-songs came out because Suge put a battery in the Realest back, I believe. It was making him go out. You know, he said that he I know you probably heard of it, that Murder, See Murder, and all this other crazy stuff. And all this stuff. And the Realest, he was getting that Mob Deep. He's getting at anybody that Pac had a problem with. But No Limit, Pac didn't have no problem with No Limit before his death. So, but the Realest was one of the main ones. And then they had a fake Snoop called Top Dog on Death Row Records. So, but in due time, you see what happened with Suge. He lost his lofty position because he was overdoing his power. You know, he was taking his position as being a CEO too far. And he used his connections with the street to muscle people, so to say. But all that stuff of the him making people drink urine and smacking females and doing all other stuff and caught up with him. And one thing I want to say about Suge, if Suge could have played his cards right, he could have still been powerful up to this day. Look at that dude. That dude had the image. He had the looks. He had the artists. Like, if he had listened to Harry O, when Harry O told him not to get in front of the magazines, stay behind the scenes, you can be more powerful, Suge could probably still be around as one of the most powerful labels of today. But Suge wanted the fame. He wanted to be in the spotlight, and it cost him. Now, when you look at P and No Limit, you know, P stayed afloat and did numerous projects. You know, he diversified his portfolio and all that. He invested into other things so that, like he said before in a couple of interviews, when the music ain't too good, you had something to fall back on. He learned not to put all his eggs in one basket. He know that, you know, you have your drought sometimes. You have your drought in all industries, so that when one industry has a drought, we got another industry to eat off until the drought, until you weather the storm. You follow? So, that's my whole, you know, No Limit / Death Row confrontation and Snoop being saved by P. You follow? Shalom. Salams. Godspeed.